Welcome to A1 Storyteller, the home of powerful narratives where truth meets drama and justice always finds a way. Today's story will grip your soul and raise your fists. In a world where silence is often mistaken for weakness and where power tends to wear a badge, what happens when the victim is not just a victim, but a trained weapon of peace and precision? This is not just a tale of brutality. This is a story about a woman who stood tall in the face of injustice, who was pushed too far by a corrupt system, and who responded not with rage, but with unstoppable skill. A woman whose quiet strength shook an entire city, and whose legacy reminds us that the most dangerous people are often the calmest. So sit back, turn up the volume, and prepare yourself for a ride full of heart, fury, and triumph. Because this isn't just entertainment. This is A1 Storyteller, and the truth always hits harder here. Downtown Oakland buzzed with its usual rhythm, horns echoing off buildings, street vendors calling out their lunchtime deals, mothers pushing strollers past towering murals, and students gathered in knots, arguing music, politics, and dreams. It was a city of edge and soul, grit and history. But like so many American cities, it still wore the bruises of injustice. On the corner of 9th and Jefferson stood a little wellness shop that most people passed by without a second glance. No big sign, no flashy lights, just a wooden door, polished glass windows, and handwritten chalkboard notes about inner peace and energy balance. Inside, the scent of sandalwood drifted lazily through the air, carried on the hum of soft meditation music. It was owned and run by a woman named Amara Cole, a figure of grace, calm, and mystery to most who met her. Amara was in her late 30s, though her poise carried an ancient weight. Her skin glowed like polished obsidian, her eyes deep with knowing, and her body moved like water, slow, deliberate, and dangerous to those who underestimated it. To her customers, she was a healer. To her neighbors, a source of quiet inspiration. But to those who knew her past, she was something else entirely. She had once trained under the elusive Grandmaster Tao Li in the mountains of Shanxi Province, China. A lineage that passed down not belts or trophies but secret forms, deadly pressure point knowledge, and techniques meant to disable a man in under 3 seconds without spilling a drop of blood. She didn't advertise it, didn't even speak of it, because Amara had left that life behind. Violence, vengeance, and victory, all buried in the past. Or so she thought. That afternoon, as she stepped outside to sweep the sidewalk in front of her shop, a storm was already approaching. Not in the sky, but in the form of Officer Dale Rourke, a cop with a reputation longer than his service record. Stocky, aggressive, and always itching for confrontation, Rourke had built his career on intimidation. He claimed to clean up the streets, but everyone knew what that meant. He targeted the vulnerable, mostly black men and women, the homeless, and young teens walking alone. His file was full of complaints, but none of them stuck. He had friends in the department, connections downtown, and a badge that acted more like a shield than a symbol of justice. Rourke had spotted Amara a few times before, calm, quiet, always alone. Something about her annoyed him. Not because she did anything wrong, but because she seemed unaffected, untouchable, and Rourke hated anything he couldn't control. Today he saw her sweeping the sidewalk, her long locks tied in a low bun, her frame slender but upright, strong. She wore loose black pants, a simple linen tunic, and flat-soled shoes. To Rourke, she looked suspicious. To him, her confidence looked like arrogance. And in his world, that was enough. He pulled the patrol car to the curb, tires hissing. "Hey," he barked, stepping out. "What you doing out here?" Amara turned slowly, meeting his gaze without a trace of fear. "Sweeping my storefront," she said simply. Rourke walked closer, already puffing up like a threatened dog. "This your business?" "Yes." "You got ID on you?" Amara furrowed her brow. "Is there a reason, officer?" "I asked you a question. You gonna cooperate or play games?" She stood still, the broom still in her hand. "You're on private property. I haven't broken any law." That was enough to push him over the edge. In 3 quick steps, he was in her face. "Give me your damn ID now," he snapped, hand already reaching toward her shoulder. In that split second, something ancient stirred in Amara. Her breath slowed, her spine aligned. The years of discipline returned in a single pulse. She remained still, calculating, but Rourke was already moving. Without warning, he shoved her back and kicked her hard in the thigh. She staggered, catching herself, her eyes never leaving his. He smirked. "You think you're above the law?" But what he didn't know was this. Amara had once fought 6 men in an underground fight ring in Rio and walked away without a bruise. She'd survived war zones, riots, and back alley ambushes, and now, here in her own neighborhood, this cop had laid hands on her. For the first time in years, Amara Cole let go. She dropped the broom, her stance shifted. Feet aligned, shoulders relaxed, eyes locked in. Rourke noticed it too late. His smirk faded just as her first strike came. A blur of movement, her palm connecting with the center of his chest. The wind shot from his lungs. He stumbled back. He reached for his taser. Too slow. Her foot lashed out, snapping the device from his grip. Too late. A precise elbow to his jaw sent him spinning. A sweep kick dropped him to the pavement, and before he could blink, her knee was on his chest, hand gripping his wrist in a lock that turned pain into compliance. She leaned close, calm, controlled, deadly. "You touched the wrong woman." By now, bystanders were filming, phones pointed, eyes wide. Someone shouted, "She dropped that cop like he was nothing." Sirens wailed in the distance, reinforcements coming. Amara stood and backed away, hands raised. She knew what it looked like, but she wasn't running, not anymore. Because what had just happened wasn't just self-defense, it was a message. And it was only the beginning. The sirens grew louder, shrill, shrieking warnings of power on the move. Amara stood still, breathing calmly in the middle of the sidewalk. The unconscious officer crumpled at her feet. Around her, a circle of stunned witnesses began to retreat, scattering into alleyways, ducking into shops, or pressing record from across the street. Phones buzzed with live streams, text messages, and frantic calls. In the era of viral justice, truth was no longer told behind closed doors. It was broadcast in real time, but Amara didn't flinch. She knew what was coming. She knew they wouldn't care about context. A black woman standing over a white cop? That wasn't going to be read as self-defense. That was going to be painted as an attack, as aggression, as criminal. Within moments, 2 squad cars screeched to a halt and 4 officers burst out, hands already hovering over holsters. The one in front barked, "On the ground, hands behind your head." Amara slowly raised her hands, voice calm. "I've done nothing wrong." "Down, now." She moved deliberately, lowering herself to her knees, placing her palms against the pavement. She offered no resistance, but even then they came down on her with force. Knee in the back, wrists yanked behind her, cold steel cuffs snapping tight. The officer she'd disabled, Rourke, was beginning to stir, coughing violently, trying to sit up. "She attacked me," he groaned, clutching his ribs. "She assaulted a police officer," one cop shouted to the gathering crowd, hoping to control the narrative. But it was too late for lies. The video was already circulating online. Angles from 3 different phones caught the kick, the shove, the unprovoked aggression. And then the swift surgical defense. No excessive force, no rage, just precision, control, justice. Still, they dragged her into the back of the cruiser like a criminal. The streets she'd walked for years now watched her like a stranger. Behind the tinted glass, her face remained impassive, but inside her chest, an old fire had reignited. Not just for herself, but for every black woman whose silence was mistaken for submission. For every healer who had to become a fighter, for every life crushed under the weight of a system that refused to see them as human. News travels fast, but in certain circles it travels like lightning. Amara's niece, Layla Cole, was the first to see the clip. A 22-year-old college student and aspiring filmmaker, Layla nearly dropped her phone when she saw her aunt's face on screen. Calm, steady, righteous. She replayed the footage a dozen times, fury mounting with each view. Within an hour, she had uploaded a cleaned-up version to multiple platforms, adding captions, context, and hashtags. Amara Cole. Black Amara Master. Justice for Amara. It exploded, but even faster than the internet was him. Miles away in Atlanta, in a private dojo hidden above a jazz bar, a man stood before a group of elite martial artists, guiding them through ancient movements. His name was Sensei Zeke Vaughn, Amara's former student, her first protege, a man forged in the fires of loss, molded by her discipline and sharpened by battle. He had once been a street kid with no future until Amara took him under her wing. She didn't just teach him to fight, she taught him to control it, to fight for something, to protect. When Zeke saw the video, he froze mid-form, his eyes locked onto the moment of the kick, the shove, the injustice, and then he saw the transformation, the stance, the technique. His breath caught in his throat. Someone had dared lay hands on her. He wasted no time. He called in favors, pulled strings, and within 2 hours was on a plane to Oakland. Because if the system thought it could break her, it was about to meet something it couldn't silence, something it couldn't control. Because behind every master is a legacy. And this one had just returned. In the downtown precinct, Amara sat silently in an interrogation room. Cold metal walls, flickering fluorescent lights, and a camera watching every move. She'd been booked, fingerprinted, and left waiting for nearly 3 hours. No lawyer, no phone call, no rights read. The door finally opened and in walked Detective Karen Briggs, a veteran officer with a reputation for doing things by the book when the book suited her. She slapped a file on the table. "You're in a lot of trouble, Ms. Cole." Amara didn't blink. "I want my attorney." Karen smirked. "Sure, after we talk." "I said, I saw the footage, impressive, fast hands. You military?" Amara didn't respond. Karen leaned forward. "You assaulted a decorated officer. He has cracked ribs and a dislocated jaw." "That's not self-defense, that's attempted murder." Amara's voice was like still water. "Then press the charges, let's go to court. I'll bring the videos, the witnesses, let's talk about what really happened." Karen paused, her face tightening. She knew this wasn't going to be easy. The department was already under scrutiny, Internal Affairs was watching, and now the internet was breathing down their necks. "Let's say we cut a deal," she offered, voice softer now. "You walk away, quietly, admit some guilt, pay a fine, we make this disappear." Amara leaned in. "You're afraid, not of me, of the truth." The door burst open before Karen could respond. A tall, dark-skinned man in a black suit stepped in, flashing credentials. "This interrogation is over. Ms. Cole, I'm your attorney, we're leaving." Karen shot up. "Who the hell are you?" He smiled calmly. "I'm with the ACLU, and I just filed a motion to have all charges dismissed." Amara stood. The war had begun. Equals 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 equals. The plane touched down just as the sun dipped behind the Oakland skyline, casting long shadows across the city. The terminal was crowded, noisy, alive with movement, but Ezekiel Zeke Vaughn moved through it like a ghost, dressed in simple black, hood up, head down. He didn't draw attention, but his presence radiated purpose, calculated strength, focused fire. He hadn't seen Amara in almost 4 years. Their last meeting had been bittersweet, her sending him off with the blessing to lead his own path, to teach, to protect. She had given him everything: technique, philosophy, heart. He had become not just a martial artist, but a protector of the people, taking on corporate security contracts, helping train self-defense classes in inner-city communities, and even consulting on military combat systems. But none of it compared to this. This was personal. The moment he stepped into the cool Oakland night, he called Layla. "I'm here," he said simply. Layla's voice cracked on the other end. "She's still in holding. They haven't officially released her." Zeke's jaw tightened. "Where?" "Downtown precinct, but Zeke..." "They're playing dirty. They're stalling, trying to build a case." He paused. "They won't get the chance." Layla gave him the address of a local community center where activists, lawyers, and elders were starting to organize. As he arrived, the place was buzzing with energy. People printing flyers, charging phones, uploading videos, gathering signatures. But when Zeke walked in, everything stopped. A few recognized him instantly, others could feel his energy, controlled power, calm rage. A younger organizer named Rafi stepped forward. "Are you the guy in the black gi from the YouTube seminars?" Zeke nodded. Rafi stepped aside. "We've been waiting for you." Power moves and quiet threats. Meanwhile, back at the precinct, Amara had been moved to a separate holding room under pressure from public attention. Her lawyer, the ACLU representative, Marcus Delroy, was sharp, aggressive, and well-connected, but even he was having trouble piercing through the department's layers of red tape. "They're dragging this out intentionally," Marcus said through the mesh divider. "They want the heat to die down. They're hoping the internet will move on." Amara tilted her head. "It won't." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Because of your niece?" She smiled faintly. "Because of him." And almost on cue, chaos erupted at the front of the precinct. Dozens of protesters began arriving in waves, coordinated and peaceful but loud. Chants echoed off the walls. "Justice for Amara!" She defended herself. "We see you, Rourke!" Behind the scenes, pressure was mounting. The police chief, Arthur McLean, an aging man with decades in the force, watched the growing unrest from the second-floor window. His jaw was clenched. His phone buzzed again and again. Calls from the mayor's office, legal advisors, reporters, even national news anchors. But he wasn't just worried about optics. He just received an email, no sender, just a video file. He clicked it. It opened to a grainy surveillance cam. Rourke kicking Amara, her turning, the palm strike, the sweep. Everything clear as day. The subject line simply read, "We're watching, choose wisely." Zeke stood outside the precinct gates, silent as the crowd swelled around him. He didn't yell, didn't chant. He just watched. Calculating. A group of officers appeared behind the barricades, trying to keep order. One in particular, Officer Maddox, a friend of Rourke's, locked eyes with Zeke and sneered. "You one of her fans?" he called out. "She belongs in cuffs, not a dojo." Zeke stepped forward, just close enough to be heard. "I'm the one who taught her everything." That made Maddox blink. "Then you taught a criminal," he spat. Zeke's voice didn't rise, it dropped. "No. I trained a warrior. She didn't start this, but I promise you, if you keep pushing, she's not the only one who'll finish it." Maddox scoffed and turned away, but there was hesitation in his step now. Inside, Amara stood quietly as her lawyer approached, clipboard in hand. "They're letting you go," he said. "Charges dropped, but they're making it look like a clerical error, no public admission of wrongdoing." Amara nodded slowly. "Let them lie. The truth is already out there." By midnight, Amara walked out of the precinct, head high, surrounded by community leaders and her niece. Cameras flashed, chants erupted, and from the shadows across the street, Zeke stepped forward. Their eyes met. Neither spoke for a long moment. Then Zeke simply said, "It's good to see you, Master." Amara smiled. "You never needed me to be your master." Zeke nodded. "But I'm here anyway." They walked together to the crowd, past murals of resistance, past signs reading, "Protect Black Women" and "Power, not Permission." And in that moment, something had shifted in the city. Amara wasn't just a victim. She wasn't just a martial master. She had become a symbol of resistance, of quiet power, of what happens when those pushed to the edge refuse to back down. Officer Dale Rourke was put on administrative leave, but it wasn't justice, it was damage control. Still bruised, still nursing his ego, Rourke paced in his apartment with a glass of bourbon, rage bubbling under his skin. "That witch," he muttered, "that arrogant—" A knock on the door. He froze. Another knock. He peeked through the peephole. Nothing. Then he turned, and Zeke was already inside. "What? What the hell?" "How'd you—" Zeke closed the door quietly behind him. "Relax. I'm not here to hurt you." Rourke backed up. "You can't be here. This is harassment." Zeke took one step closer. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to give you a chance." Rourke blinked. Zeke's voice turned steel. "You go public. You admit what you did. You take responsibility, or I release everything. The video, the reports, the interview." Rourke trembled. "You don't scare me." Zeke leaned in, whispering, "I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to end you. Politely." And then he was gone. A week later, Amara's story aired on national television, not as a crime, not as a scandal, as a lesson. Clips from her martial arts school began trending. People began signing up. Young girls, older women, even former gang members. Everyone wanted to learn what she had, not just how to fight, but how to carry strength with grace. Zeke stayed in Oakland helping her rebuild, and together they formed a new kind of school, not just for martial arts, for resistance. This wasn't just a fight, it was a reminder. Some people carry storms in silence. Some warriors wear no armor, speak no threats, and wait patiently until they're forced to rise. And when they do, the world learns that power doesn't always wear a uniform. Sometimes it wears braids and sandals. Sometimes it sweeps the sidewalk. And sometimes, just sometimes, it leaves bullies broken on the pavement. Thanks for watching A1 Storyteller, where the quiet become legends and justice hits like a fist to the soul. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think, share it, comment below, and remember, never underestimate the calm, because behind it might be a master